Hey everybody. It's gosh, what is it? It's 8:15 on July 16th. We are at the ECS Hangout that is as always sponsored by Control Freak company.com, and we're just here hanging out, talking cars, talking car shows, talking cruises, talking everything about the car show scene. Reggie is to my right, and how you doing, Reggie?
I'm doing good. This is basically an open chat for anybody that wants to come in and shoot the crap with us tonight on a miserable Saturday night. We're leaving an open
It's
chat for anybody that wants to
it's
come in.
miserably hot. We're you know we're with adult beverages, and we're just gonna talk about cars and talk about the car show scene, and we're gonna talk about like one of the subjects that I kind of brought up that we were kind of like going hemming and hawing, like what do we talk about tonight? And I kind of did the whole like, why is the car show scene so self-deprecating that it actually kind of shoos away future people from coming into the car scene? Why does that happen? And I'm very passionate about this subject because I actually feel very strongly about this, and it's not a popular subject. So therefore, some of my opinions are not the opinions of ECS magazine, and I do take this subject like very seriously, because when I go to a car show and I watch somebody show up with um, we'll say like a Nissan Skyline, or even a lowered um, a lowered Volkswagen that might show up at a car show, and we get the old school guys who sit there and look at that and go, "Why is that even here?" And it upsets me to a great degree. Um, it, it's one of those situations that when I witness it happen, I start shaking inside, and I get very emotional about it, because myself, when I was growing up, my car show or my car to go to at the time was like, even you could almost say, now as I'm older, like a Gen 8 Camaro kind of like moves me to a certain degree. And, but then in like an F body, Trans Am Smoking the Bandit one was certainly something that moved me at the time, kind of thing. Whereas, we still have that generation of car show attendees that are still looking at like GTOs, looking at 60s and even 50s cars. And when they look at these kids that are like even my kids that show up in a 350Z, and they go, come on, really? But that's what they grew up on. It's generational. And the love of, I always call it the the squish, um, bang, blow. Because we all have that shared love of the basic concept of the internal combustion engine. It doesn't matter what generation it comes from. And I don't know. What do you think, Reggie? Is there a generational divide that exists that kind of makes it so that the future generation almost gets turned off, or do you think that the generations just keep replacing themselves? Oh no. Are you on mute? Uh-oh. I can't hear you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are having technical difficulties. Or I am. I haven't touched anything. No. This is me going, but now I'm not on mute. So hopefully everybody is still hearing us. Hey, we got Braylon Roselle, who's going, yo. Braylon, if you want, just give us a, like, can you hear me or Reggie or none of us? That'd be cool. What's going on? Yep, can't hear Reggie. All right, so it's just me. So eventually Reggie will come back so that we can either add people so that we can talk about this. But for now, it's going to be me talking to the screen and talking to the camera and going, what's going on? And still can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Oh, there you are. Oh, thank God.
You thought you were going to be talking to yourself?
Listen.
Poor fella.
So, going back to my original question, I'm not sure if you heard it.
Yeah, I heard it.
Did you?
I didn't respond to it.
You just didn't respond to it. You got nothing. You got nothing to go with it.
Well, the thing is I'm open. This has always been basically an open magazine. You know what I'm saying? And we've always been open-minded to all different types of vehicles. But the thing is, I've made a point to a few of my photographers before too, when there's certain types of vehicles that they don't like. You know what I'm saying? It happens. And there's out there that I don't like. But okay, I'll use an example. There's a lot of people out there that don't like squatter trucks. There's a lot of people out there that don't like the cambered cars. There's a lot of people out there that don't like lowriders. I mean, everybody's got their different opinion. But I'm not going to say their name, but some people looked at if you like the squatter trucks. And personally, I don't know how to opinionate that one, but we have put them in the magazine. But when you look back, when I like 95, 94, when I built my mini truck and everything else, we used to have nothing more than air shocks in the back, and we used to drag our rear end down the road with our front end hyped up in the air. I mean, to be honest with you, if you look at it in that perspective, it's not much different.
So a lot of it's almost as if the trend has somewhat returned.
Think about it. Like muscle cars came out when you were younger.
Yes.
Okay, but muscle cars didn't come out when these guys were younger. When these guys were younger, these guys younger, this is their muscle cars. The imports are their muscle cars, like the muscle cars were our father or us. The import scene, the mini truck scene, has changed because of the difference on the generations. The generations ain't going to always stay the same with the different capabilities, the different technology that we have.
Right.
I mean, if that makes any sense to you, I mean, it's never going to stay the same. But
Hold
just
on.
like, yeah, I'm waiting. Yeah, but the different.
Sorry, I'm having a choking moment.
This is a really screwed up night.
Right. Of all nights.
Yeah, but no, it's just there's a lot of difference, but in a lot of weird, strange ways, there are some comparisons. If you look at certain key factors, there is some similarities. Yes, the vehicles are different. Yes, the passions are different. But everybody still those young people look at their vehicles and their ways the same way we did. And our ways were not looked at the same way as our grandparents and our parents used to look at them either. But customization has always been it just changes over time. Nothing ever stays the same. People have to move on. And it is sad. That's the way it is. Like lowrider mini truck shows or the new classic car shows. A lot of young people don't want to go to them because You know, because they look like a classic car show to them.
It's funny to me because every car show has that. Jeez, I'm crowing. Every car show has that aspect of like some car that shows up that everybody stops to look at. Some of them are generational. Some of them are just it's different, right? Like sometimes the like a mini will like stir someone's soul, kind of thing. That then kind of peaks to everybody else. Or whether it be exotic, whether it be American muscle, somehow there's sometimes a bridge depending on the show. Now, I have that somewhat of a dislike of like the car shows that actually do like the 1972 and before, where it's like no car after 1972 is worth it. And I'm always kind of like, well, what's up with that? There is it that just because of the oil crisis, suddenly there was no cool car after 1972? Is that a thing? Because it seems like it is for certain shows.
No, I don't think it's a thing. Like I just said, like for me, I enjoy going to a good classic muscle hot rod show. But my son, my daughter don't look at it the same way. You see what I'm saying? Like if I go to a lowrider show, not everybody looks at it the same way. It's kind of like lowrider meets and classic car shows, but have become the classic car show and the antique car show when we were younger.
Right. Like when the brass era like would show up at our car shows when we were like in the under 10 years old.
It's hard to explain, but like the big wheel car shows and import shows are the thing that happens. That's the happening thing now.
Right.
The SEMA built shows and the truck shows are the new age of what we used to be crazy about, mini trucks and lowriders. And like our fathers were about muscle cars and not rat rods because they weren't even around, but hot rods. And and then before that, the grandfather was into the gassers and all that stuff.
Well, I mean, and it's funny too because I was never into like the gasser scene, but now it seems like when I see one, isn't it cool to actually see one like to show up? Isn't it cool to sometimes see? Like I've even made the joke, like if you had told me 20 years ago that I would get excited to see a station wagon at a car show, I would have laughed in your face. But now I see one, and that nostalgia that shows up to actually see something like that. And now even to see, different gasser era cars show up, so perfectly done now. And yet then you'll see that gasser show up, and then that, oh gosh, like we'll call it like, what it is, like the lowered Volkswagen that'll then show up, and suddenly it's like that generational gap that suddenly happens of like, and it's funny too because I'm going through this like whole phase where like I like for whatever reason somebody sent me a link to carsfromjapan.com or something like that, where you can actually import like cars directly from Japan. And I'm kind of going through this thing where I've like I almost desperately need a either a Suzuki or a Honda Acti van that I can then like turn into a mystery machine because it's the perfect scale. It's just like why do I want to do this like so badly? And but anyway, Bubba Ayers, I believe, if I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it right. He's dropping by from the YouTubes to say hi. And Braylon was actually saying the mag looks he looks good, homie. So I'm sure I'm sure Reggie wants to say that, but I think he's frozen again. Oh, he's back. There he is. He's back.
What did Reggie say?
You were frozen for like a long period of time.
What, did I have a good look on my face?
No, you had the cigarette hanging out of your mouth, so it was perfect.
Nice. No, I put that link in there for anybody that's in the automotive scene, mini truck, lowriders, whatever. They can click that link. They can click that link underneath the live, and they can join in with us.
Perfect. So I don't know. It is always been one of those like fascinating subjects to me, where I've always actually kind of like I kind of looked at the older generation, and when they shake their head at any car that shows up at a car show, and it just kind of irks me, because like to me every car has a story for each individual. And each car is passionate to that individual. Or as to even put it into an even simpler terms, is that every car has a story for that person. And I always love those stories. Each one of those stories is like so fascinating to me. And I never get tired of it. Like I never get tired of it. It's I love hearing the individual stories for each car, whether it's the build process or why were they looking for that particular car. If it wasn't even like a car that's built, if it's a car that's like completely stock or something like that, it's like why did you want that car? And then if there is a build process, I love the build process. And it's kind of like, why does everybody love like watching Chip Foos like building somebody's car? We love that process. We not only do we want to see what they're going to do, we want to see like here's what it looked like before and here's what it looks like after. And that's why I think it's always fascinating, especially when you walk up to a car and there's that book, like the magic book that's usually like underneath the hood that has here's what the car started with, it can even start as simple as here's the car that I got when it was brand new, and it's 40 years later. Or it could be as simple as like, oh, this was a barn find that I then built up later, kind of thing. So I find those stories fascinating.
So what particular kind of cars is your favorite? Have you ever had any curiosity in lowriders or mini trucks or rat rods?
You know what? I grew over the years in that, like, when I was a kid, it usually gravitated to like what my dad was into.
Same thing here,
right? My dad was into like Model A's, and brass era cars. He was fascinated by old brass Buicks and brass caddies, 1918 to like 1920, like era cars. It was before his time, but it doesn't it seem that way too, because like myself, where I was born in 1971, but yet for me, like a 1971 Mustang Mach 1, which is considered like almost one of the worst Mustangs. It's not really by any means, but not one of the better ones by any means. But to me, it's like whenever I see one, I get that nostalgia. But as I grew older, I did find that I don't know if it's just that I'm that middle generation. I don't really know, because I also kind of watched, as everyone else did, the Fast and Furious as it came out, and we saw those like those interesting cars that came from overseas. And
Yeah.
you're right, Reggie. Like lowriders, I didn't get it at first. I honestly didn't get it until I actually um, until I actually saw one personally, and because I live in New Hampshire, lowriders weren't not a big thing up here. Um, you know, for they're only, I think, now just kind of breaking in, and that's mostly because we have so many potholes, we have so many uh, such bad roads up here that they don't lend themselves up here. But I get the but I get the appeal on like on a level.
Well,
Um,
if you're going to say that about lowriders and potholes in New England, you have to say that about all the imports that live up here too,
right,
because the imports
and there's, for a long time there was not a lot of exotics up here.
at
Um,
one time, New England used to be loaded with custom mini trucks.
right, and
Nice.
and that was the thing, and you know what was funny is, like, I had a very good friend who he acquired like an S10 Blazer, and he said, you know what, I'm going to build this thing, and I'm like, and I looked at him and I'm like, why? You know, like I initially didn't get it, and then he did it,
Well, put,
and it was it started off as simply as putting um, Monte Carlo SS wheels on it. I mean, that was the first step, and then the second step was building the motor, and then you know, and then the steps like ensued after that, and I I kind of went, okay, you know what? Now that I see it, that's really cool. And I'm very open minded to like every genre, and I didn't think I was at first, because like I even kind of went through that phase of like rat rods I didn't get for a while, but then all of a sudden I get them. It's like, oh my god, like that is just the coolest thing to see. Like, why is that so cool? And but so I don't have. I mean, my go-to cars right now for me of what I have like in my driveway is I have a 2006 Jeep, and then I have a 1995 Corvette. So those are my two cars that I bring to shows. Um, I keep saying to myself, God, wouldn't I love to have like I would love to have a 450 SL Mercedes, or a 600 series, uh, okay, a 635 CSI BMW. I would love to have one of those. I would love to have a 79 Trans Am. I would love to have a Model A. A model, and if I was going to get into a specific of Model A, I would love a Model A Tudor. That would be like my ultimate, so that like the whole family could fit in it to like go through a parade. I think that's like the ultimate parade car. But and that's the funny thing is I actually just recently did a parade with the Corvette for the 4th of July. Wasn't initially planning on doing it. It was just one of those like spur of the moment, like, let's show up, see if they let us in. And uh, uh, you know, smiles for gallon was definitely definitely worthwhile. For that type of thing. So
well,
to answer your question, to answer your original question, there isn't a genre that I don't appreciate, at least some level, and it took me probably till my late 40s to get to that level, because when I started my website, uh, shameless plug, NewEnglandAutoshows.com. It's when I started to like actually appreciate like each of the genres. And I'll be honest with you, I I did that kicking and screaming because I didn't want to like, it's kind of one of those is like, I want my 95 Corvette and that's all I want. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you know what? Shit. That 59 Caddy looks really good. That thing looks like really amazing, doesn't it? And then you walk around and you see something else, and then all of a sudden you see um that low riding S10 pickup, or I saw a Chevy Love recently that was like totally like decked out, and it's like, how do you even find a Chevy Love that's like still in like one piece?
Go down south.
Yeah, right. Or Texas, right? Yeah. But it's funny. It's like, you go through that phase, and then here I am, like like surfing the web, looking at like a Suzuki, van, minivan, going like, oh, that would just be so cool to have, kind of thing.
You want to talk about finding something? I was recently been trying to get me a big body Lincoln Town Car, a Cadillac, build a lowrider. I was thinking about building a mini truck again. I was even thinking about building a custom van again. And then something struck me about a week ago. And I guess with the gas prices, everything else, I literally started really thinking about building a lowrider geo tracker.
Oh, oh,
Because them things back in the 90s were the talk. Everybody wanted one. Everybody went and got one.
yeah,
And when they had little spoke wheels and white walls and nice candy paint on them with hydraulics on them, they were a freaking blast, bro.
yeah.
You cruise around this little tracker and you got your top down on a summer day and everything else, and you can play with your little switches. And it didn't have no body weight, so you could bounce that little thing all over the place.
Well, it's funny because, so when you say the, gosh, Geo Tracker,
93, 94, 92 body style.
and it's so funny because like I flash back to a friend of mine. His name was Casey, and he had a Suzuki Samurai.
I used to have one too, and I
Right,
loved it.
and how fun would it be to like find something like that to
I find it all the time.
and it's like, oh, that would be like spectacular to do,
Have you ever took a second to realize that, not calling kids dumb, but how quick? Because now when you hear a lot of young kids talk about luxury vehicles, they always talk about G wagons.
Hmm.
You know how funny, how similar a Samurai Suzuki actually looks like
To
a
a
G
G
wagon.
wagon. Yeah.
So you tell me you couldn't fix that thing up luxurious and put rims on it, and these young people wouldn't even have a clue?
I know.
They would.
Realistically, what do you really need? What do you really need, like, out of a car? You need a killer sound system. You need a killer set of rims. You need a killer set of killer paint. And you're done. At that point, kind of thing. And I mean, it's great to have like the engine and whatever kind of thing, but it also depends on what it is.
I would love to get a Geo tracker just because of the summertime and have it look so sharp and so nice and lowered down with the nice spoke wheels and white walls on it, beautiful metal flake paint job.
I'm gonna throw another vehicle at you that since you're actually like throwing that one out. There was another one from that era that was very, I think, underappreciated for the 4x4, like truck market, and I'm talking about, I believe it was the Mitsubishi Amigo.
Yeah.
It's like, how cool would that be to like, because that had like that half soft top, half hard top, kind of thing going, and that I always kind of thought that was just kind of like the cool best of both worlds.
What's amazing is if you take something so old and you modernize it so well and so good, it's almost hard for any younger people in a generation to hate it, because they'll be like, that is so cool, because it'd be modernized but still be an old vehicle. And that's one thing I like about what they call the resto mods. That's why That's why I like the resto mods, because they take an old car
Yeah.
and they modernize it, but it still has that old look, but has that modern day luxury.
You know, it's funny that you say that, because like, how cool is it when you actually see like a C1 Corvette that's like got like C5 Corvette components like thrown into it, kind of thing. You know, or like an LS motor like thrown into it with
I love it when I see
four-wheel
someone
disc
show
brakes, and it's got an actual suspension on it, kind of thing. And you just want to like you just want to go out and tear that thing up and see what it's all about, kind of thing. But
I love it when I go to shows and I see someone break out with an old Cutlass sitting on airbags, got big wheels tucked up underneath the fenders, got fuel injection, high performance motor in it, leather interior. Dude, some people would get all mad. See, I have a big problem with, I don't care to destroy the meanings of a classic and antique, because I look at it as, when I die, that thing is not going with me. So
right,
why not enjoy it? See, I get so worked up to see. I'm gonna say it bluntly because I don't really care. That's one of my pet peeves about going to most modern day classic small mom and pop car shows, because they look at a classic as, why would you damage it? Why would you destroy it? Why? Because it was factory. You're obsessed with a factory built car that you're not going to take with you when you leave. So you're 80, 90 years old sitting out there with a 64 Impala that was back in showroom perfect condition. That's great. But when the next person that you leave it to is probably going to juice it and put spoke wheels on it.
right, and or smooth it out, or or
Yeah,
throw a decent stereo system into it,
but
or like whatever, like or what we all like to traditionally call it, personalize.
yeah, but when you, like, just like that last topic on that one live when Primo was on there, when I talked about where I went to a classic car show and it said open car show, open car and truck show, and then my Chicano friends, and I'll say it, over in Providence, but my Chicano friends pulled up. I told them to come because it was open car show. They pulled up to the gate and they were told they couldn't come in because their cars weren't classics. And, that stuff turns my stomach when you get turned away because
Yeah,
it don't suit your fancy.
we
So
had we had a car show here in my hometown that uh I'm actually gonna tell an actual story about it. It was a car show that is no longer happening, and I had some new car show friends that I met, who he has a um, Volkswagen Rabbit Mark One that has a I want to say it's a Mark III motor in it. Complete with turbo, and this thing is done up like it's like perfect. Only slightly lowered, but it's got like period correct BBS wheels on it, and it's all white, and the motor is all black, and it's perfect. It's you can eat. You could actually like cook your meal on top of this motor. It's so clean, and not worry about any kind of like dust or anything being in your meal on it if you did it, kind of thing. It's so perfect. And
look,
I was at this car show and I showed up because a 95 Corvette is kind of generic. It can kind of show up anywhere. It's it's special interest, and it's American. It is what it is. Um, but he showed up with his wife, and by the way, I dare say that I'm 50, um, 51 maybe, and I think he might. I know he's roughly the same age as I am, and he showed up in his car, and I literally, like, when I saw him pull in, I started walking toward the entrance, and next thing you know, like, I'm watching this person who's like taking and handing out the raffle ticket, that is usually for like at those like nightly events. Um, and she was like, "We don't allow tuners in here."
yeah, I don't like that. I don't like
And
it
I,
when people do that.
and
I
I
really,
literally walked up and I'm like, he's got an antique plate on his car. It's a 1979 Volkswagen Rabbit. It's an antique car, but it's a.
Yep.
And she looked at me, but it's a tuner. I'm like, it's an antique car. It's like, I'm like, he's not going to cause a problem. Let him in. And she goes, well, if he causes a problem, he's out. I'm like,
but that goes to show the reason why that's why I think a lot of people like pull their way away from different car shows, because the way they're treated when they go to certain shows.
yes.
I mean, look, you take, okay, per se, if I still had my 1985 mini truck, my 1985 mini truck back in the days, I mean, I went to a lot of open car shows. We went to everything. And I never got treated like that. For some reason, a lot of car shows are like that now. But if I still had my 85 Nissan 720, my little hydraulic tilt bed on the back, and I had it today, why couldn't I enter a classic car show?
In my mind, there's zero reason why you can't.
But you see my point, but a lot of lowriders don't want to go to import shows. A lot of imports don't want to go to lowrider shows. Mini trucks, and it drives me nuts when I run this magazine and I put these coverages in here every other month. And I'm looking at the one flipping through right now. It bothers me. If you look at those coverages, a lot of them are separated. They're so you see right there, Battle of Obama. You see mostly bag trucks, mostly, not all of them. You see bag trucks. You see mini truck nationals, mostly mini trucks. You see import shows. You see all imports. Why don't they come together anymore? They used to. When I used to show and everything in the 90s and early 2000s, everybody showed together. But I could tell you the reasons why. Because for some reason they want to exclude them, different types of vehicles from coming in their show, and a lot of it is due with certain groups from certain types of vehicles that cause a lot of problems. But that shouldn't be the punishment for everybody.
But you know what? Let's talk out loud about that. Let's talk about that causing problem situational stigma, because let's be brutally honest. Whenever I hear certain car show runners talk about like people coming in and going, oh yeah, that guy is going to cause a problem, and they're causing, and they're 9 times out of 10 they're pointing at a teenager or a person in their 20s.
It's called stereotyping. They do it.
But I'll go even further than that. That person I'll even shoot myself in that realm where, like, I'm 51 and I'm looking at that 18-year-old myself. I'm looking at him and going, yeah, I was doing worse than what he's doing. We were all there. And I think, at least for myself, I had certain people that would walk up to me and go, yo, dude, you can do that like when there's not like 50 other people around, but when it's maybe you and like 3 or 4 of your buddies, that's cool to do. But when you're at like a car show, that's not when you do it. You don't do it at a car show, unless it's like, if you're at if you're at a speedway, or if you're at like a where you're actually competing for that type of thing, that's when you do it. You don't do a burnout leaving certain events. You just don't. I'm not going to say that I never did it. I've certainly been that guy that probably shouldn't have done it. But that being said, whenever I go to a car show and I see a car show runner and he looks at a specific person and goes, "Oh, that's going to be a problem," and I'm like, "Well, you know what? Then make it vocal, and go, and if they make a problem, make it be vocal about it. Don't hold it in."
Yeah, but you can't sit there and hold a car show and exclude people out because they drive the same kind of vehicle that someone before had created a
Right.
problem.
Right.
If you create a problem, don't kick the whole car club out unless they go with them. Kick that one person out. Make a statement that you're not going to put up with the crap.
Right. And that's exactly the thing, because I can tell you right now, like I actually, I think I've told the story before where I had an issue because I drive a Jeep, and there's a certain car show that's like around where there was an actual incident where a bunch of Jeeps showed up and they did the, like, put their front tires on each other's front tire, and unfortunately somebody parked at like the tail end, and somebody got into the, like, that last vehicle, whether they hit the clutch, e-brake, whatever. Suddenly that car or that last Jeep rolled off and landed on that person slash car and caused an incident. And then suddenly, like, I showed up and I was like approached by somebody going, you need to leave right now. We don't allow Jeeps here anymore. And I'm like, okay, first of all, I've been going to this car show for like 20 years.
It's not always that one type of vehicle. People got it because of videos and stuff, like the incidents with Mustangs. They got this habit with seeing Mustangs. Oh crap! It's a Mustang, or they're gonna cause a problem, and that's not always the case.
I could tell you right now, like, every time I am very guilty of making the joke about the Mustang leaving the car show, causing an incident. But whenever I make the joke, because I think it's a funny joke, only because there is an equal, if not more, number of Corvettes that have done the exact same thing that a Mustang guy has done, leaving an event. Well, and you could certainly say that about any other car that leaves like an event, kind of thing. I think it's easy to pick on Chevrolet and Ford. It's just easy to do. Because it's not that we're picking on Mustang, we're picking on Ford. And when a Corvette does it, we're not picking on Corvettes, we're picking on Chevrolet because it's easy to do. And I mean, and let's talk about that interesting dichotomy of, oh, you drive a Ford. Oh, you drive a Chevy. Oh, you drive a Mopar. Isn't it interesting, like, how that attitude, I think, can easily, I don't want to use a word as strong as ostracize, but I want to use a word of, like, there's an exclusion that automatically happens when other people agree with those type of statements. Because, again, each car is subjective to each individual. Personally, I'm not a big Ford person. I'm a much bigger General Motors person.
Yeah, same here.
And while I certainly appreciate a Hemi, I can tell you many stories of Hemis that after 30,000 miles suddenly develop the why do their freaking gaskets suddenly give way at 30,000 miles. It's been a problem that they have all the time, and something that I always associate with every Chrysler / Dodge product, type of thing. But but isn't it interesting that, like, what we sometimes consider the funny rivalries between, whether it be Chevrolet, Ford, General Motors, and Mopar. Isn't it interesting, though, that, like, sometimes those rivalries almost do the exclusion of not wanting people to attend specific car shows? Isn't it weird, though? I mean, that's why I always want like everybody to go, dude, it's a love of a car. Each car does the same thing. does one car do it better than the other? I don't know. That's subjective, is it? It's subjective.
It's kind of the same factor as like when people hate on people because of their race. It seems to have the same factor towards cars. Just it sounds stupid, but it makes sense. Like, you know, and another thing I'm tired of is like when people see a lowrider, they assume Chicanos. If they see a donk, they assume black. I got news for you. There's so many different races that drive so many different types of cars, and I don't understand why that they
I
characterize
can tell you
somebody.
right now, the last lowrider I saw was not driven by a Chicano. And if
No,
I hate using that word, by the way, but it certainly wasn't a Mexican American or
no.
a Latino. It was strictly driven by like the most Caucasian person I'd ever witnessed driving a lowrider ever.
But that's not what my point is. My point is the fact that people are literally look at different and hate different types of cars basically the same way over years that people look at each other, and it's
Yes,
weird. It's a
it is weird.
car, but it's a car.
Yeah,
It's just customized differently for a different taste and the way
it is
people.
weird though. I didn't notice it as much until recently, um, and it's funny. It is funny to me because there is unfortunately a racial classification of type of cars owned and or modified.
Let me ask you a question. In your lifetime growing up, when you hear import car, what's the first thing you think of?
As far as owner,
Yeah, just go ahead and say it because I wanted to prove something.
yeah, I mean, and I have to say it's totally based on.
You don't have to say it, but
it
does.
Is totally racial. It is totally racial. It is totally racial.
Yeah, you didn't. You don't have to say it because
I'm not gonna say what specific race, but it is racial, and it sucks.
Just like it would blow your mind the stereotype that people get with a 4-wheel drive jacked up monster truck.
Right.
You know what's funny is that I've seen a lot of monster trucks. The most best monster trucks are not driven by a young redneck dude.
Right.
A lot of them are like business owners, corporate owners, people that's got a big business that has plenty of money. You'd be surprised. And I've seen,
like I show up with my Jeep, and people go, they look at this gray-haired, guy, showing up, with my Jeep that has 35-inch tires, and they just kind of look at me and go, "You're not that doesn't fit." When my son shows up with it, he's younger, but then all of a sudden when he starts talking, and he has like the most New England accent that you can possibly have, and because they're expecting him to have that Southern drawl, kind of thing, and it's funny to me because it is a very biased stereotype situation that happens in the car scene.
Look, I'll give you an example because you probably can't relate for this, but I've literally owned and built almost every different type of car that you see in these magazines. I've built mini trucks. I had a Pontiac Fiero slammed to the ground with a 327 in it. I had a Cadillac Fleetwood. I had a Ford Escort lowrider. I had I did say mini truck already. I had a custom van. I had a regular little pickup truck.
Wait. Back the truck up. Or no, back the van up. Did you have the stereotypical airbrushed, half naked chick on the side of said van?
I didn't get that far.
Okay.
I was going that route though. I was going to do murals on it, but I didn't really get that far. But no,
but, I mean,
my
that's
point.
The thing. I mean, but so there's the thing though, because I automatically stereotypically, based on your age, said that's where he went with that build.
Okay, but
Didn't I?
Where I was going with this, when I had that mini truck, believe it or not, driving all around North Carolina and other states, going to car shows, I never got bothered. Now this is going to be a stereotyping proof right here. My wife is my witness. I had that mini truck and never got bothered, never got harassed, no problems. The second I built a lowrider, every time I went somewhere, I was pulled over and searched for drugs.
Oh.
You know what was funny? One time,
unfortunately, I totally get it. I mean, it is a thing.
The second I built my lowrider Escort, I went to a Walmart in a town over from where I lived at just to get a gallon of milk and some bread. I had 7 cops pull me over in a parking lot, surround my car, put a dog walking through my lowrider and everything, sniffing for drugs, and then all the cops left but one black officer.
Yeah.
I walked up to that black officer and I asked him, I says, can somebody please explain to me what was the point of all this? I was out there for almost 2 hours. He smiled at me. He goes, sir, he goes, I'm going to be honest with you. They never seen your type of car in this neighborhood before, and they assumed you were a drug dealer. I looked at that cop and I said, can I tell you something? Can I tell you something? I said, can I tell you something? And maybe you could teach the other police officers? And he smiled at me. He goes, what's that? I go, 7 cops just pulled me over, searched my whole entire car for drugs because a lowrider, automatically, he's a drug dealer. I said, but I says, everybody I know that's a drug dealer drive the crappiest cars that you would never imagine. Nobody out there is stupid to be a drug dealer and drive nice ass cars.
Why do you think back in the 20s and 30s, the rum runners were doing, and the moonshine runners were doing so well in like ugly, big ass cars? They weren't,
But see,
I'm sorry, they were not. They were not. Every moonshiner was running in an orange Dodge Charger with a,
I know, but
with an 01 on the side. That was just not happening.
But that right there goes to show you another one. When people look at lowriders, the police officers look at lowriders, they think of movies and music videos, rap music videos.
Yeah.
When they see a 4-wheel drive, they think of some crazy ass redneck that's going to cause some problems.
Yeah.
When they look at a mini trucker, the only thing they know of is that every single one of them is going to go throwing their sparks down the road and catch on fire. That's not always the truth. Because I know a lot of mini truckers out there that got air ride suspension and refuse to cruise up and down the road dragging the ground because they don't want to mess up the undercarriage they just spent thousands of dollars doing.
Right.
And not every lowrider is going to run. I mean, almost any lowrider is not a drug runner. And then most of them are not even gangsters. Because I actually started hanging around lowrider meets and lowrider picnics and everything else. And to me, be honest with you, lowrider people and mini truck people, all jokes aside from the South, mini truck people and lowrider people are some of the most gullible and the most lovable people I've ever met. Did you know I'd rather hang out at a mini truck show and a lowrider meet than go to any classic or antique car show nowadays? Because
it's funny that you say that. It's funny that you say that because even there were certain car meets that I was going to that I was like, you know what, I kind of enjoy these people a lot more than my normal crowd.
The younger shows and mini truck shows and lowrider shows, they treat everybody like family. They're good people. But I have personally gone, and I'm tired of going to them, is classic and antique car shows that I used to represent a lot of. But a lot of them do treat you like crap.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because exactly what I was saying at the beginning of the show is those are the type of the people that are unfortunately driving away the next generation of car people.
Look, it irritates me when people say the young generation is screwing with car shows. The young generation screwed with car shows. Believe it or not, if people look between the lines, a lot of the older generation
They're
are
doing
messing
worse
with
damage.
cars
They're doing worse damage.
because
They're
the older people don't believe in change. They don't believe
right.
in nothing. The only thing they
Right.
believe in is the car that they brought to the show. And that's
Yep.
all they want to talk about. They don't
Yep.
want to talk about nobody else's car. They don't want to talk about how well somebody else did with their vehicle.
Yep.
They don't want to drink a little bit with each other. They don't want to have a cookout with each other. They don't want to bring their families. They just want to sit in a long chair beside their old car.
They don't even want to take that person that they if even if that person screwed up like that previous week and did something, they don't even want to like say, "Listen, you were here last week. Come on over here. Let's talk."
Look, I go
And
to
and give them that second chance. They don't even want to do that,
but I can
and
go
it
to
drives me nutty.
I can go to a lowrider picnic anywhere. Any state you name it. I go to any lowrider picnic or lowrider meet.
Yeah,
Any state you want to give me. North, south, west, every one of them people, you can walk up in there and you don't even own a lowrider. They come up talking to you. They want to show you their cars. They want you to meet their grandmother, their daughters, their sisters, and everything. You go to the mini trucks down south, the same thing with the big truck shows.
yeah,
You walk up to most of them, they want to tell you, talk to you. They want to get to know you. And I used to love going to classic antique shows. I'm not gonna lie to you, Joe, but it's like the older they get, they're so disgusted in their eyes of how much of a car show's changed. They
yes,
don't want to let go of the past, and
yeah,
they don't want to live in the future. And I got news for you. That's why. So that's what creates a lot of problems with these shows that don't want to come together
yeah,
because a lot of them have different viewpoints, and they're too scared to come together because they're afraid it's going to create a controversy. But my buddy used to own Drop Draw magazine. He used to put the shows together all the time, mixed together, and we absolutely had no problems.
yeah. And it's funny, isn't it though? Like because I I legit have a local show that it's like one of my all time favorite, like every Friday show that like happens up here, and I've covered it like too many times in my on my website, and I'm guilty of like just going every time I go there. It's like you know you just never know what's going to show up at that car show, and I it's a very forgiving car show. It's now on us like a second version of folks who
But
are
don't you,
running that car show, and they allow everything in. There's there's no awards. There's no there's no 50-50. There's it's just show up in a parking lot and show off your ride kind of thing, and music is being played, and and it it is that quintessential car show that like anything goes, anything can show up, and for the most part, there isn't the exclusionary. I'm not going to say that there are not the people that kind of like look at something that shows up and goes, whatever. You're going to get that at every car show. I don't care. It's going to happen no matter what. But what I love about this car show is that it doesn't intimidate people from showing up. Like people show up at it no matter what, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and it's the Target show that happens up in Nashua, New Hampshire, and it's always perfect. It's always awesome. But my point being is that, and we should like kind of wind the show up because we're on the 9:14 hour. Is is that uh, you should never look at any car that shows up and dismiss what it means to that person, because every car that a person drives to a car show, they're not 9 times out of 10. I sure there's certainly going to be that couple of times that you're going to get the Wayne Carini that's going to show up in a car that he's totally intending to sell. He has no vested interest in it, but he like all he's going to do is he's going to sell that car. And I don't dismiss that. I don't say that that's like a bad thing. But he knows that there's going to be somebody at that car show that's going to love and appreciate that car enough to buy it or figure out how they can get it or how they can get one like it or whatever, kind of thing, because every car that shows up at a car show has an emotional connection to the person that's driving it there. And that's the most quintessential thing that everyone needs to realize at every car show, because it's all subjective. There's not a specific genre of car that is specific to any one person, because we've already defined that. We've already said that, like, not there isn't a stereotype that is specifically drawn. Oh, sure, we can probably say, like, yeah, maybe there's a percentage, sure, but I'm like that percentage of person that will, like, look at every single car and go, you know what? Truth be told, if I had a 1 acre freaking barn, that occupied a full acre, I'd try to populate that barn with every freaking car, genre that I could possibly, like, put in it, so that I could show up at every single car show. And I'd have a lowrider. Absolutely, I totally have one. I love them. I totally have a rat rod. I think that's spectacular. With a diesel motor, I think that would be like the coolest thing ever. I would love to have a BMW. I totally dig having a BMW. I've had Civics. I loved my Civics. My 2007 Civic was probably like one of my most favorite daily driver that I've ever driven in my life. I love my 95 Corvette. I love my Jeep, with all of its quirks and foibles. And that goes for, like, every other, like, car that I've ever owned. And that's what I think that folks need to embrace and totally cohesively exercise and just like legit appreciate of anyone who shows up at a car show, no matter what thing they show up with, and go, he's here for a reason. And I might not like I might not like that particular car, but he's passionate about it. And that's what we need to appreciate, is, like, the passion that's involved behind that.
Exactly. Well, so, guess what?
It's 9:18. I think that's when we started at 8:18. We got a little bit of a late start. We had some technical difficulties. It's and Hunter Layton just came on with saying, like, man, y'all are spitting truth tonight, with additional hell yeah on that. And thank you so much, Hunter. That actually means a lot to me, because I am very passionate about this. It's something that I like. I've genuinely felt about the car community, that we actually need to be, like, much more cohesive and much more embracive of, like, each of the genres. So what do you think? This is ECS Hangout. We just basically had an open discussion. As always, we're sponsored by controlfreakcompany.com. If you want to, like, start controlling your machine to the ultimate things, I need to look into that thing a little bit more for both both into my Corvette and in my Jeep. I think I could actually do some really cool things with that.
Control Freak operates anything on 12-volt accessories on your car using your cell phone through an app. You can command your car to do anything you want it to do, as long as it runs on 12 volts. You can operate your airbags, your hydraulics, your stereos, your power windows, power sunroofs, the whole 9 yards. Check them out at controlfreak.com to find out more. Hey, look, Joe, I'll end it out, man. I appreciate everybody that's coming in, or maybe watch the video afterwards. We do this every Saturday night at 8 o'clock on YouTube, youtube.com/ECS Mag. You can also check us live on Facebook. And soon we'll be doing some other things too. So I plan to be doing some lives on Twitter, or not Twitter, but TikTok and Instagram as soon as I get it figured out. But
I did get some TikToks from you, and I was laughing quite hysterically. By the way.
Oh no, I'm going to figure it out because there's some gamers up there that use TikTok to do the same thing that we're doing right now. And as soon as I figure out how to do that code, and I guarantee you, if my wife is not here, she'll agree. Once I figure it out, I will make it happen. I don't care what Pre says, I will make it happen. The Instagram, maybe not as much because they got their stuff set up so weird. But I just want everybody to stick together, come together as one. Let's go to the shows and have a great time. Check out all the magazines. They're always available at ecsmagazine.com. I'm your host, Reggie. That's your host, Joel.
Joel Chappell. And don't forget NewEnglandAutoshows.com.
Are we going to have a website battle here? Don't forget ECSmagazine.com either.
That's right. They're all cool. We elevate each other.
All right, man. All right, guys.